What's up, everyone, and welcome to Save the Game Boy, your Patreon exclusive Nintendo podcast presented by Save the Game Media. I'm your host, Kevin, aka the Muffin Mon. And if you're hearing this, then you are a patron over at patreon.com/Save the Game Media. And I want to thank every single one of you for your support. Today, I am joined not by the usual crew of Ethan and Taylor, but by my twin brother. You're not seeing double if you're watching the video version. Kyle, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
I invite you here for a very special reason today, and people that have clicked on this will know, and that is we are going to do our Pokemon Scarlet and Violet review, and then later on we'll probably talk a little spoilery. So we will give a warning before we get into that. But Pokemon came out a few weeks ago. Where are you with Pokemon Violet? Because that's the version you got. So how long did you spend with it? Have you beaten it? Give the people a rundown.
Yeah, so I have beaten Pokemon Violet. I completed the Pokedex, so I caught all 400 Pokemon. I got the Shiny Charm. I did the rebattles at the gyms. I did some raids. So I think I've beaten pretty much every single thing in the game that there is to do at this
Okay.
point. I think I finished at like 50 hours total.
Okay.
To catch all the Pokemon, I know it took me 48 hours and 6 minutes.
Oh wow! So you flew through those like rebattles.
They're super easy. Like once you've beaten everything in the game, like your Pokemon are like super like leveled up. At least mine were. That and I think having access to the legendary,
Mm,
and this, you know, the other thing that you
yeah.
can get, really help. So
Okay. Okay. So you have done more than me, obviously, because you always were going to. For anyone that isn't aware, I'm a very casual Pokemon fan these days. Kyle is a very hardcore Pokemon fan, where he catches all the Pokemon in every single game and does everything you can do in the game. But I have beaten Pokemon Scarlet because as we do, we always buy the opposite version so we can trade with each other. So I beat Pokemon Scarlet. I did all the main storylines. So the I would say four because there's three, and then you get the fourth one after you've done those three. So I've done all of those. I did not complete the Pokedex. I probably got halfway through it, and I want to say mine was in the 25-ish hour range for that completion. So a good amount of time spent with the game. Clearly not to the level you are. There are Pokemon you've probably caught that I haven't even seen.
I
So
know
that's
there are.
yeah. Oh, okay, okay. Ooh, I am a Pokemon master. Um, but what were your overall impressions of Pokemon Violet and Scarlet?
So the first thing, obviously, I don't think we can not talk about it, is the game runs so poorly. It it's like
What?
it's like, hey,
Haven't heard about this.
I know, it's like, hey, 25 FPS lower sometimes. I never had any like crashes or anything like that, but if I ignore the technical aspects, which I do a lot of the time because I think as long as the game's fun, I can overlook it. I thought that it was super fun. This was like they took what was the base of Sword and Shield, like with the wild like area that they had, um, where you could see Pokemon in the overworld and you could have your friends come in, but they could only be in like that section.
Hmm.
And they combined it with a lot of the things that Arceus did right, where you could have like your Pokemon out following you. They could attack and engage in battles on their own. The quick battle system and them collecting items is super helpful. It gets them XP quick, and you don't need to go into the turn-based thing. It was super cool that we could play like co-op and have both our stories going at the exact same time without
Hmm.
interfering with each other and disconnecting from the worlds and everything. That was really cool. That and like if I saw like a version exclusive you had that I couldn't get, I could catch it in your game. That I think that was really well done. So I, I thought it was a ton of fun. I think
Hmm.
it's probably one of the best Pokemon games if we're just looking at gameplay and like fun factor and story, I think it was probably one of the best ones,
Okay.
especially of the last like decade or so.
Okay. So if anyone's unaware, I played Pokemon. I played the first, I want to say 4 generations. I stopped at Ruby, I think. Was that 4?
3.
That was 3. Okay.
It was 3.
So I did red. Oh, I did blue, and then I had gold, and then I did Ruby. And then what's
Mhm.
after Ruby?
Diamond and Pearl.
No, I didn't do those ones. I didn't do those ones. So I stopped after the 3rd generation, and I had a big Pokemon break where I played occasional like spin-off titles on like console. But really I never went back to the mainline Pokemon series until Pokemon Shield is what I picked up. And when I picked it up, I felt like the game was fun as someone that hadn't played in over a decade, but it was very much the fact of this is kind of just the same game I played 20 years ago on my Game Boy, but now in 3D. It was incredibly easy. It never really kept me hooked. And then Pokemon Legends Arceus came out, and I know I've said I really like that game. You really like that. I think you're much higher on it than I am. I think that game was great in a lot of aspects. I think the open world really helped Pokemon. The sneaking mechanic and quick battles were fantastic. I just didn't like the way they handled the research mechanic. Is what my big drawback to it was, which is kind of my only criticism of Pokemon Legends Arceus because like I actually think the story was really good in that game. So for me coming into Pokemon Scarlet, I was like, okay, if they can meet that level of quality, then I'm going to be completely happy. And I actually found that Pokemon Scarlet was a step up from Pokemon Legends Arceus. I think this is the best Pokemon game that they've released since I returned to the series in when did it was a 2020 that Pokemon Shield came out or 2019,
So last year was the Diamond and Pearl remakes,
and that was the year before that.
and it was the year before
It was
that.
2020 then.
Yeah.
2020. So 20 in the last few years. I think this game is an improvement, a lot of quality of life features, and the fact, as you said, the big thing for me is they finally realized that, like, hey, we need to make this co-op. Pokemon should be a multiplayer experience that you can enjoy with your friends, but you can also do play because there were times where I was like, I'm gonna go do this gym, and you're like, okay, I'm on the other side of the continent catching these Pokemon in an area that we glitched into that I probably shouldn't be over here yet, but I'm gonna grab them. I'm like, all right, you have fun. So I would just do the gym line. I'd get my own cutscenes, and then I'd pop out and it'd just be like Luna caught all these Pokemon, and I'd be like, that is so cool that it doesn't disconnect us. It doesn't make you choose what you want to do because there are times I was like, hey, let's meet up now and let's go catch Pokemon together. And look what I got. Here's what the evolution looks like. It was a very more enjoyable social experience. And obviously we only did it with us two really. But you could do up to 4 players. And this is what I want to see Pokemon continue to do.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one of the like coolest things about co-op was when you went because I had played for quite a few hours before you had jumped into the game, and you got to that first section, and I walked up
Mhm.
to a cliff, and I showed you how we could glitch over the cliff if you just throw like the Pokeball and start a battle, it'll warp you over. And so your starter, I don't know, was like level 10 or something. And there's like level 20 plus Pokemon on this other side that we're like catching. And you're getting access to all these different types before you
Mhm.
go to these other areas, which I think the non, so I'm going to say non-linear, but I do think that there is a best order to do things in this game.
Someone actually
Um,
made a map that said this is the best order to
yeah,
do them
yeah,
in.
and I would agree that there is probably a best order, and I think once like speedrunners and things come out, they'll optimize it and make it. But there was my only problem with like the open world was that while I loved being able to go to every area and catch all the Pokemon, like you said, I could be on one side of the map and you could be over here doing something else. There were times that I felt like limited and because I hadn't unlocked a certain travel mechanic, or I hadn't chosen to go do this Titan or this gym first. And I constantly found, I mean, I told you while we were playing, I constantly found myself over leveled because I wanted to catch all the Pokemon that I
Mm-hmm.
could on the route before moving on, which is something that I've always done. And I was running into the constant issue. Like there were battles that I lost in this game because my Pokemon would not obey me. And for like 5 turns, they just didn't obey me, and and they died. So except your starter always obeys you. But I think that the open world was a success in general. I think the co-op, I want to see it expanded on. I'd like to see more than just like the raid battles. Raid battles are cool, but they do get kind of repetitive.
The animations take so
They take so
long, and
long.
that's what I think really drags down the raid battles for me. Like, can we have a speed up button,
Mhm.
especially when I'm playing solo play with
Yes.
AI? Let me skip some of these animations. Like you're adding tedious amounts of minutes to my gameplay experience here.
So speaking of animations, this was one of the first. I think it's probably maybe one of the only Pokemon games that I've ever played that I can remember that doesn't let you go into options and turn off move animations.
Hmm.
Every other Pokemon game, you can just turn off all the animations. I don't know if that was like a limit or they just didn't include it because they want you to experience the 3D open worldness of it. But for once you've seen like all the animations, like it does get very like I don't need to see someone do Magical Leaf 80 million times in a row. I know what the move looks like. I want to catch
Hmm.
this Pokemon. I want to speed this up a little. So I think that was a bit annoying, and I think it plays into the raid battle thing. They did make the battling mechanics of raid battle better from Sword and Shield, where
Yes.
there you would have to each take like a turn, and
Here it was just constant all out
yeah,
attacks all at once,
yeah.
whittling down the health, and then once the bar breaks, and they added the Tarantula size
Which
mechanic where
how did you feel about that?
I felt, first of all, the animations take way too long, but also I felt like they very rarely changed anything in the tide of battle. There were some Pokemon that I was like, oh, that's a cool typing that when you terrestrial size, maybe my normal Pokemon become a ghost type. I had a
Mhm.
few cool things like that I went out of my way to. It's like, okay, you're now going to be my party because you can cover 2 matchup types. And that's not really something I think about, but it does. Like I remember I would constantly be asking you, what is this weak against? What is this strong against?
No.
Because I haven't the slightest idea for any of those things. So there were Pokemon where I thought it was helpful. The majority of the time, though, I was like, okay, I'm going to like a gym leader. Oh, you terrestrial size, and this isn't going to change anything. I'm still going to murder your Pokemon with the Pokemon I showed up with. It really, I think it was just a gimmick to be a gimmick, and I don't really think it was anything special, especially in the raid battles where the enemy would terrestrial size, and that's like, you have to terrestrial size to break the shield, and then you can. It was just a little too much for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool concept, I think. I don't think it was executed that well. Like you said, a lot of times when the gym leaders would do it, they would just throw out a Pokemon that if they had kept it the normal type that it was like I think there was one they threw out like a dragon type,
Hmm.
but then they made it ice. And I'm just like,
Yeah, I brought
I'm
fire
like,
Pokemon here.
you just literally made your Pokemon weaker than it would have been if you had just kept it dragon. So
Well, I
and
think
yeah,
that plays into like some of the AI. Maybe the AI is not programmed to actually
but
strategize
but
that well.
I will say that when you do the rematches, that happens much less.
Oh,
The
okay.
so I'm not sure if they were just like, we'll save this for the true battles like afterwards. Because I mean, even the Elite Four, I thought you could sweep with like 2 Pokemon.
I did sweep with 2 Pokemon.
Yeah. Because
My starter, I grinded for like 2 hours, got my starter like 15 levels higher than everyone, and I just went in there and wrecked house.
there hasn't been a good Elite Four, especially champion, since Cynthia. And I think this one was particularly not great because you could cover all 5 people with basically 3 Pokemon,
Mhm.
maybe less depending on like dual typing and stuff, or who could learn what moves. And they did try to make it a little different this time because they did mess up some moves. Like they removed Scald from Slowpoke's moveset, so he can't learn that anymore, which I absolutely hate, as that's my favorite Pokemon. And they gave like new unique moves to certain Pokemon. And I don't know. I think they need to stop making a new gimmick every single time
Mhm.
and focus more on, like, I still think Mega Evolution was the best gimmick that they've ever done, and I think they should bring that back. Dynamax was okay, but I didn't really care. I think I can count on one hand how many times I actually used it.
I only used it when I was like, "Oh, they did it. I should do it too," which never really made any
No,
sense. And I was like, "Why did I do this?" Because in my mind, I was like, Does this give you like a secret HP boost?" I don't think it does. I don't think it did
no,
anything like that. It just put a stupid crystal on my head.
no. It would change the, if you had like my Dragonite or whatever
Yeah, yeah, it'd
was
make it like a
Dragon and then Thunder.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so
So you brought up the Pokemon champion, and so I want to talk about the story a little more and the characters because for me, I think what I've learned playing this game is that the Pokemon games with an actual story are the Pokemon games that I enjoy. The Pokemon games where it's just go beat the gym leaders and become the Pokemon champion are very dull and boring to me. And that's why I think the first few generations are so fondly remembered because they had Team Rocket and Team Magma. Was that one? I
Team
think.
Magma,
Yeah,
yeah.
Team Magma. Oh, we're gonna destroy the world. We're gonna harness like Groudon's power for evil or whatever. Like things like that are much better. And even if you look at things like on the GameCube with Gale of Darkness and Coliseum, where you have actual storylines, actual
Mhm.
stakes, those games are so much better than just the generic go catch Pokemon games. And this game for me, I think kind of met in the middle where you have a storyline. You have 3 storylines, I guess, technically, if you wanna if you wanna say that, but they all converge at one point. And you're kind of told that through 3 main, I would say, other characters that you're doing the storylines with, right? You get Arvin, for the Titan storyline. You get, we called her Pneumonia. I don't know if that's how you actually say her name, but that's what we called her. We called her Pneumonia. She was the Pokemon champion. And then,
There's no voice acting, so how would we know?
that's true. That's true. And then what was I don't want to say who the actual character is, even though it's pretty
Oh,
obvious. What was
the
the
from the Team Star storyline,
yes, the
right?
Team Star storyline? Do you
Yeah,
remember the name that they would call on the thing?
I
Um,
don't know.
okay, you get a
Because
mysterious,
because
yeah,
it was so
so obvious,
obvious.
so obvious. How do you feel about these storylines and ultimately like where they led?
So Pneumonia is, while kind of annoying sometimes, I thought she was actually like an entertaining like rival. They've stopped kind of doing rivals and more do
Mhm.
like friendly competitions.
Bro,
But
better than better than
anyone,
Hop.
anyone's better than Hop. Hop is
You're
the
so good.
worst. Hop might be my least favorite character in any Pokemon game.
Any
Like
video game, what are you talking
he's
about?
so bad. So I at least enjoyed Pneumonia. I mean, she sucked as a trainer, but I at least enjoyed her. Arvin, his storyline didn't go where I thought it was gonna go, but
No.
I think it did get emotional and did try to build like a connection, which I thought was nice. The Team Star storyline, I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm not even really sure. Well, like it's a bunch of troublemakers who don't like the rules and then they go make their own team, and
Yeah.
then the way it's resolved, I'm like, kind of just wasted everybody's time, didn't you?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, Team Star has the best, hasta hasta la V-Star.
Hasta la vista. Yeah.
Um, so So I will say I did like Pneumonia as the Pokemon champion. But for me, I would say that while you get all three at the start, right? Because they're like, okay, this is the big expedition or whatever. The treasure hunt is
The
what they
treasure hunt,
call it. The
yeah.
treasure hunt. Then they give you these three main storylines with those three characters, and you have the objectives. They all kind of felt the same at a certain point. Like they all really were just battling something at the end of the day, which I understand. They were trying something new, and there's only so much you can do. They did try to make some differences, like the team star bases. Like you would have to throw out your Pokemon in quick battle, 30 Pokemon real quick, and then you get to the boss fight. Okay, the Titan obviously is you have to go find the big Titan and then follow them, and that's kind of more of a terror raid battle. And then the gym is the classic, well, not even I wouldn't say classic, because the classic gyms are you go through a little maze and fighting trainers, then you get to the gym leader.
Well, the trainers are there. You can just completely ignore them and avoid all of them.
Yeah. But instead what they give you is a challenge that can be like slide down these slopes through hoops or roll a giant olive
I don't
into the
hold
goal.
on. I don't care what anyone says. The get in the gang of Sunflora challenge, best challenge. That was awesome. I loved having 10 Sunflora just following me around. I was like, yeah, let's go, boys.
In 6 FPS. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
mean, yeah.
yeah, so I appreciate them trying something different. I would say that while they all tried to do something and then connect back to each other, at the end of the day, it felt like Arvin's story kind of took over at the end. Like he became more important when you get to the fourth main quest, which sees you go to the
Area Zero.
area zero. Yes, you go to area zero, and his storyline kind of takes over for me, and it becomes more about him, which really I'm like, I get it, but like, couldn't we have connected Pneumonia and the other character that we shall not name to this place a little more to make it a little more impactful? Because like that is what they tried to do, and they didn't nail it. I do think the final encounter is very well done, especially for a Pokemon game where I was like, oh, they actually wrote some stakes and some emotion into this story, which isn't something we get very often. But um, yeah, I mean, I liked Area Zero. It was a neat little thing.
It was bothering me, so I looked it up. Cassiopeia.
Cassiopeia.
That's
Cassiopeia.
Cassiopeia, yeah. That is who the person who calls you on the phone is.
Okay.
But no, I would agree that each storyline was kind of just like a tutorial or using the mechanics of the game, like the team, like you said, team star bases. You're using the quick throw mechanic and quick battles until you get to the actual fight. The Titans are the terror raid fights, but like much easier
Yeah.
and much quicker. You could like one shot a
And I
Titan.
wish you could have caught the Titans. That's all I'm saying.
So funny story. If you go back to where you fight all the Titans, and I don't think this is a spoiler by saying it, but if you go back to where you fight all the Titans, you'll find a static Pokemon of the Titan just sitting there, like much smaller. And if you
Uh-huh.
catch it, it will have a badge that says former Titan.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's, I mean, obviously it'd be cooler if they were their Titan form.
Massive.
Yeah.
Huge.
But I do think at least that was a nice thing to include because I think people did want to catch them.
Hmm.
And then gym battles for gym battles. But I will say that they've been experimenting a lot with how they tell like the story and how they want you to go through it. And I think Sun and Moon, the not Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, just normal Sun and Moon, did it terribly. The totem Pokemon were so boring. I did not care. I don't like Sun and Moon. I'm gonna be honest. People might like it. I don't. And I thought that Sword and Shield went too far back in the other direction, where um, it was basically the Eternatus storyline happening like in the background, and it was super obvious what was happening. And then you just kind of, I don't know, win everything.
Yeah.
Like the gym leaders are everything in that game is so easy. Where I think that there are better Pokemon battles, especially later game in this one. So
I I want to talk about one specific, well, two specific Pokemon. It's the legendary Pokemon. Um, because unlike previous games, you are introduced to them right off the bat.
Yeah.
And you get them, and but instead of being able to use them in battle, which is what I thought you were going to be able to do, they are primarily a means of transportation until the end game, which is super weird to me. How did you feel about like getting your legendary right at the start of the game, and then the way they decided to take the route with the legendary Pokemon?
So you got Koraidon, I got Miraidon, and obviously they're just placeholders for the other one in the game, even though sales suggest Violet is outselling Scarlet by like a lot.
Judging anecdotally, my friends list would
Yeah.
agree with that because I think me and Ryan Turford are the only people playing Scarlet, and then everyone else is Violet.
Um, so I didn't mind getting the legendary so early, like to have as the form of transportation and everything. But I do think that it becomes an issue, and they kind of tried to fix it, but I don't think they really did in like the post game, because you, as someone who keeps all of their Pokemon in a living Pokedex in Pokemon Home, you can't transfer or trade your transportation riding legendary. It is permanently stuck in this game. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, why give me this? Why not just give me something else and have me catch this? Or why not at least make it tradable? Like, who cares if I can't ride around on it?
Hmm.
I mean, I understand why you couldn't battle with it right away. I know that you were like, oh, cool, I'll have a legendary right away that I can use to battle. Because as you go through the one storyline, obviously more things get unlocked and revealed about it. And then by the end, you learn a whole bunch about it. But I don't know. I was indifferent to it. I didn't mind it, but I didn't particularly like love it. I do think it kind of missed like the super cool reveal that always happens, like when you go to finally face off against like the team. And I mean, Team Star was irrelevant for the whole
Yeah,
legendary
they didn't
thing.
care about the legendary
No,
Pokemon.
but I do miss like when you would go to confront Team Magma and they would awaken Groudon, and you'd have like that big epic battle against like the level 60 Pokemon, level 70 Pokemon, depending on when you go. And then I think it missed part of like, oh, I have Kyogre and Groudon. I'm gonna go get Rayquaza now. And then, oh, there's a post game story where I can go into space and get Deoxys. Like, I I missed those, and I think that by giving the legendary so early in the game, it kind of took away some of like the cool factor.
That's kind of how I feel about it too. When I saw him, I didn't think of him as a legendary Pokemon. He was like because when you get the Pokemon, they're very
He's
weak
my
and they can't.
car.
Yeah, he's my car. Like I didn't think of him as a legendary Pokemon, and that kind of made me not like in older games when you go get a legendary, there is a fear factor. It's like if I kill him, I'm gonna turn my Game Boy off real quick and reload my save because like
Mhm.
you just messed something up. Having it just given to you kind of just took away some of the excitement of the Pokemon. It's like when you finally get to use them in battle mode, it's not really like okay, it's cool, but it's not really something. And then the fact that they're um so I'm not gonna say the fact that yeah you can do more you can do more where with them than just ride around and battle. It kind of I don't know. It wasn't the best implementation for me. You told me you because you caught all the Pokemon. So there are around the map. There's like secret like pull it out of the ground things, right?
Yes.
And those are secret legendaries, right?
So in the game, in the academy, you can take classes, and you take like different classes, art, like history,
I did one
uh,
round and never went back.
music, math, a whole bunch of different things. And a lot of them are a lot of them are just mostly like introductions to how the universe works, explaining more of like battle mechanics, like crits and the typing multipliers and everything like that. But like the history class was cool because on the board they'd always have like throwbacks to like Legends Arceus. they'd have like little Easter eggs up there and things, which I thought was a nice, obviously showing that like, hey, these are connected. So once you get like far enough in and you do a bunch of the classes, you can go around like the academy and talk to like the professors. And one of the professors, I'm not going to say who, one of them gives you a side quest. Some of them give you side quests. Some of the rewards are worth it. Most of them aren't. I will say, if you do want to complete the Pokedex and you do want to get like some of the in-game trades that you don't need like another person for, you do need to do the academy. And once you get that quest, you will find out like, oh, hey, there are 4 tombs like marked on my map now. And you have to go to like the areas around them and find 10 different colored stakes that are hidden in the ground in those areas. Once you pull those out, you get 4 legendaries. I didn't particularly like any of them. They're all like history related, and I thought they would be cooler than they are, but they're okay. They kind of just feel like they were thrown on to just be a part of like the history class lesson and to give the classes more meaning. But I did think it was cool that Pokemon, continued having like side quests and different things to like unlock that stuff. And I think they should do more of it. I don't think Pokemon should just be handed to you for nothing.
Mm-hmm. I think legendaries are kind of like, there's so many Pokemon games at this point that
They're meaningless.
legendaries are kind of meaningless. Like if every Pokemon game has multiple legendaries, and we're saying all the Pokemon games exist in like the same world, just like different areas,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then what's the definition of a legendary when there's like there's so many of them? It's kind of like, because in the earlier games we were believed like Mewtwo is a legendary because it's like there's one Mewtwo, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I know everyone gets a Mewtwo in there, but in that world there's one Mewtwo, there's one Mew, there's one Ho-Oh, I believe. I hope.
Yes.
I hope,
Yeah.
yeah. Like Lugia, Groudon, Kyogre, like all those Pokemon are supposed to be like one and done. And then even in this game, it's like your legendary isn't really one and done. There's, it just kind of takes away the excitement for legendaries. I think they need to fix that.
I
That's really
think
where I'm at.
I think that became a problem, especially in later generations, especially when you introduced like Manaphy and Fiona, like they could literally breed and give birth to a baby legendary. And then they tried to do other things with legendaries, like in X and Y with Zygarde, that you had to like find all the different pieces of him and put him back together. But then that wasn't even his complete form. And then in X and Y, you get not in X and Y. In Sun and Moon, you get a 100% Zygarde, and it just looks bigger. But I agree. And then they have like mythical Pokemon that you get from like events and stuff. But even those, I don't know. A lot of the time they just feel like cool. Like for Sword and Shield, I got Zarude or whatever his name is from the movie that came out, and I've never even thrown him out in battle. I put in the code, put him in home, and I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I don't feel a sense of accomplishment that I caught him, that I did like a puzzle or something to unlock him. At least when in like Gen 3, when you would have to enter like the Braille puzzles, or you'd have to dive underwater with a certain Pokemon to unlock like the cave for the like the
Yeah.
Reggies. I thought those were at least,
Oh,
hey,
cool.
I did something. Like my Pokemon, like I figured out this puzzle, I figured out what it was trying to get me to do. And I thought that they were going to go back to more stuff like that, because like in Legends Arceus, to evolve Quillfish into Overquell, you need there was a book in the Diamond and Pearl remake that if you read the description of the book, it tells you how to evolve it, but that book is nowhere in Arceus. So you need to, like, they wanted you to have read it. Obviously, you could just look it up online, obviously. But you needed like certain Pokemon, certain moves, and to use it a certain number of times to evolve into Overquell. And they're like, this game's weird because there are Pokemon in the data, Like Overquill is in the data. Charizard, he's not in the Pokedex, in the game. Different like Galarian forms and Alolan forms, you can't, like, they're in the data. They're not in the Pokedex though. There's no national Pokedex to show you it. It just, they're just there. And I think that's kind of lame. I do like, since I am on the train of thought of the Pokedex, I do like this Pokedex.
Me too.
Probably one of the
It's
best Pokedex
great. The
ever.
animations, it makes you feel real good. Like it's nice to look at.
The
It's like,
the pictures, and like even if you haven't caught the Pokemon, if like there was times I was scrolling through, I'm like, oh, what Pokemon is number like 173 or something, and I could be like, well, I have the full evolution line for the one before it. And then I'd click on it, I'd see an outline and be like, oh, I know like what that outline of that Pokemon is. It's probably around like this area because that's their habitat.
yeah.
And then you could like kind of piece it together. It wasn't so much of a, oh, these are blank question marks. I don't know. You don't know anything about this Pokemon, even though you've seen it a dozen times.
Is it even real?
And then they would hide numbers too. Like if there was too big of a gap between entries, they would hide them so that it was like more of a surprise. I think it was Tinky Tink that evolves into Tinky Ton.
Tinky-Ton.
I didn't know that there was 3 evolutions to that. I thought
I didn't know there was 3 evolutions.
Yeah, I thought it was just 2, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna have first I thought it was a boy and a girl version, but I found out that the boy just evolves into like the ponytailed one. And I'm saying boy, but I don't need, it can be both, obviously. I thought that was the boy one. And then it evolves further again and gets like a huge hammer. And by the way, best new Pokemon.
I've heard that. I've heard people say they really like that one. Yeah. I don't know if I have a best new one, mainly because I don't know what gen. Like I don't know if they're new or not, because a lot of them were new to me. But then you were like, that Pokemon's been around since Gen 5, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I've never seen this Pokemon before in my life. But um, I do want to close up here by just slightly going into spoilers. So if you haven't finished the game, we are going to go talk about the end storyline real quick. So spoiler alert is now in effect. You can feel free to click off and come back when you're done with the game, or if you don't care because it's a Pokemon game, you can stick around. How did you feel about the Area Zero storyline? Because it turns out the professor in this game was a AI robot the entire time, because the original professor, Arvin's well, my game was Arvin's mom. Was it
Mine, it was
Arvin's?
Arvin's dad.
Okay, it was that's weird. Okay. Both his parents are dead, is what the game wants us to know. So they died in a time travel accident by making a time travel portal, and it led through a bunch of ancient, like, I got this weird Jigglypuff with like a weird tail coming off their head, and the AI like goes kind of evil and tries to take you all out to save the portal because they want the ancient Pokemon. And it was very much like you finding out Arvin's parents is dead is really the emotional impact. I thought it was really well done. I liked the closure for Arvin, because all throughout it you're like, oh, my mom doesn't like me, she left. I haven't seen her in years. She doesn't talk to me, and she like kind of refuses to address Arvin the entire time. And then you learn why. But how do you feel about that? And I have a follow-up question about the time travel portal, and that is, do you think it's related to Pokemon Legends Arceus?
I don't think it's related to Legends Arceus, unless they continue the Legends franchise and maybe include some of like the past or future versions in other games. I think that the Arvin storyline with his parent being dead, I think I would have preferred if it wasn't just like copy and paste and they changed like the mom and dad role. But I do think it was well done. Like I had no idea through the entire game until I got to that point that they were dead. There was no like real indication. I thought they were just on like bad terms and hadn't like talked or seen each other. And that you kind of like felt for him there, like, oh, that sucks for you, dude. And then when they're like, yeah, they died. Although I've seen some people that suggest that they didn't die and the mom went back to like the past and the dad's actually gone to the future. But
That'd be cool.
yeah, I don't know. But we'll see. I like to think that they're probably just dead. I don't think Pokemon's gonna go into this. I mean,
Crazy DLC storylines.
I mean, Pokemon has Pokemon has two different timelines already, and that's what that's spoiler for anyone. That's like what the remakes are. That there's a reason why there are references like in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire to the original games, but it's a different timeline and things happen differently. And that started with like X and Y and everything. But so if they want to incorporate the time travel mechanic in with that and as like part of like the background lore, I think could be cool. Maybe like the only way I could see the past working is in a Legends game. Like
well, even the future could work in a Legends spinoff.
Yeah. Having said that, I do think that the future versions are so much cooler than the past versions.
So your guy got sent to the future.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Miraidon.
That's why they look.
Miraidon.
Okay, yeah.
So Miraidon and Koraidon are actually the same exact Pokemon. It's just one is from the future and one is from the past. And so yours is has like the feathers and like the primal stuff. Mine has like technology and chrome and metal and everything. And I think they both come from the Cyclizar Pokemon.
Mine is a pre-evolved version of Cyclizar.
Yeah, which I also think is lame. Like, what? You're telling me a legendary?
Cyclizar evolves into a legendary in the future.
Yeah. And so there is that, but I think like Iron Valiant, I think his name is. All the names are stupid. First off, I think the past and future Pokemon, they're incredibly stupid.
Scary
names.
Tail was the Jigglypuff one. It's dumb.
And like all the future Pokemon, like the future version of Gallade is all decked out in chrome, has like a sword. It's super cool.
Oh, and all mine had like tribal markings and stuff.
Yeah, and then Iron Thorns is like metal Tyranitar. So he's like green and chrome and has like silver and like glowing lights on him and everything.
That's cool.
So I do think it's cool that there were differences. It did suck having to like trade for them. Luckily, the community has like trade codes. You just put in the dex number for the past version or whatever version you have, and then you search for the opposite one. Like they combined them together, so it's like 0018 0019, and you match up and you trade, which is nice. Except when it's so obvious that everyone bought Violet, and you keep trying to trade into those, and everyone's like, "Oh, you want Iron Thorns?" I'm like, "No, I don't. I wanted that other guy." And then you do that for an hour while laying in bed, and you get annoyed. But the final like confrontation, are we talking about that yet?
Yeah, we're in spoilers. Yeah,
cool. So the final confrontation where the AI
malfunctions.
It kind of malfunctions, but it kind of is just following its original.
Yeah, it kind of tricks you, and that like it's lying to you still.
Yeah.
But then
I thought like the intro where he's like standing up top on top of the machine is like super evil. I was like, all right, let's go. Like you look cool.
Me too.
And then like, he just throws the Pokemon down, and they're all at least mine were the future variants.
Yeah, mine were the past variants.
So. And then you finally get to use your legendary once you, for some reason, even though you've been fighting Titans. By the way, so I think I gave you bad advice for one of the Titans, because in the desert, mine was Iron Treads that was rolling around. It was the future version of Donphan. And so that's why I was telling you to use like certain types. but yours,
That one was easy anyway. It didn't
yeah, but
matter.
yours wasn't that,
No,
was
it
it?
wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it was not Iron Turtle.
Uh,
No.
so I didn't know that. I thought all the Titans were the same, but they weren't. And so, but anyways, back to the final fight. I thought it was super cool, and it. I mean, I didn't think it was super hard, but I
It
think
was
if
a
you,
super there was I thought I was gonna lose at one point, because you're I don't know, for me anyway, my legendary got to 1 HP, and then oh yeah, so in mine, the other because you're fighting the other, like, there's
yeah,
okay, so there's 2 versions of your legendary, and then you can catch
mhm,
the
the
other
other
one
one, yeah,
after the game. But he was whooping my legendary. I was like, why is my guy so weak? And then my guy like gets a Deus Ex Machina power up at 1 HP and then just wrecks face. And I was like, okay, maybe you were supposed to get to 1 HP before he like
no,
started being good.
no, I didn't get to 1 HP.
Uh,
And I I used the terastalize, and then it has like a move, and it just obliterated everything. But yes, you do get to catch the other version of your legendary, so you get two. But again, that brings me back to the issue: is now you can still only trade that one. So
yep.
regardless, you would need to get rid of that one to get the other conversion. And luckily, you just gave me like yours other version, and you get a master ball after, so it's easy to
It's yeah,
catch that. You just literally have to talk to it. It's behind the final fight boss
area.
area. It's up on like a little pillar. But I don't know. I that goes back to my whole. I don't think that they did the legendaries great. They kind of did them dirty in this game. But yeah, I think that storyline is actually really cool. I think Area Zero is really cool. I think it can be a little confusing to get around. At least I get lost in it because everything's just kind of green or gray. But I enjoyed that area. I do want to talk about the. So if anyone cares, I don't think any of the shinies in this game are good. I think they
Mhm.
all suck. Um,
They didn't have
I
a lot of the Pokemon I actually like
yeah,
the ones I normally would shiny hunt or like try to put in my party. Like my
yeah.
party was very much like a misfits cast, and it wasn't Pokemon I felt like a good attachment to or ones that I've used throughout Pokemon games. It was really like, what do I need to do the next encounter?
Well, and I mean, I think for me, especially as like I have shiny Slowpoke, I have shiny Slowbro, I have shiny Slowking, I have shiny Mischievous, I have boxes, hundreds of shinies at this point, and like a part of me was hoping for new ones because that's something to do post game and everything. But I didn't like any of them, and then I'm not going to shiny hunt for ones that I have like on my. I mean, maybe I could shiny hunt for like the starter, but I didn't think any of them were like super great either. And I'm not going to shiny hunt for Pokemon that I'm not going to enjoy, but I'm also not going to shiny hunt Pokemon that I already have. So I don't know. I think it's weird how they pick and choose what Pokemon come in the game. I think a lot of the new Pokemon in this gen, some of them are good, some of them
Mhm.
are so ugly and stupid, and I never want to see them again. I am still waiting on Pokemon Home. Pokemon Home integration is not here yet, so you can't actually transfer them
Which is
into.
so weird to me that they would launch a new Pokemon game without that coming alongside it. Like, uh, we're giving Game Freak and the Pokemon Company a lot of crap, but they make weird decisions and they put out products that we've seen. The FPS in this game was atrocious. Like I played a lot in handheld actually because I would take it on the go and I was playing a lot like over the holidays at other people's houses. It I think it runs much better in handheld, to be honest. Probably because it's 720p versus the 1080 on my TV, but it still had noticeable drops. It had like weird glitches, like characters not showing up. It had a bunch of weird stuff. And again, it was like you were saying at the start. I could look past all that because it was a fun Pokemon
Yeah.
game, and they are committed to fixing it apparently, which is
Mhm.
something I never thought they would say, but they do make these weird decisions about like what Pokemon to include and then just basic functionality like Pokemon Home
Yeah.
not being there.
I mean, I think their logic is they don't want you to just immediately import all your Pokemon, but
Oh.
you can just get around that by, yeah, I don't know, limiting it to a certain point, like after a certain point in the game, like an unlock, or
Mhm.
none of them would obey you anyways, since you're a different trainer and you're not the high enough level. So why would you even import all those ones? I just think that it is a dumb decision because they're like, if I have the Pokemon, why can't I just, if I want to breed and bring over like a level 1 Eevee, and start my game with Eevee and uh freaking uh Sprigatito. Like, why can't I just do that? Why do I have to wait until I find wherever Eevee is in the wild
Eevee was one of the last Pokemon I
when
like,
I already
one of the
have
last
one?
areas I went to too.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, "Oh, there you are in the game."
Yeah. Um and the I mean, Pokemon around you will show up on the map, but I didn't find it the most reliable. Like,
No,
it would be like, "Hey, there's a Sylveon spawns in this area." And I'd be like, "All right,
never saw one.
like where? Like where though?" And then I would spend, I don't know, all night in game searching for it, or all day in the game searching for it, and I'd be like, "All right, I give up. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
go do something else."
The map was pretty useless, to be honest, most of the time. It was not great.
And the auto rotating function of the map made me,
Oh, so bad.
every time I opened it, I was like, I don't know where I am
Why
anymore.
am I
And
facing this direction
the
now?
only
Like,
I literally, and I don't know if you did it, the only way I could navigate this map like consistently is I rolled it all the way back to the academy, and I just used that as a central point every single time. I was like,
I just set a bunch of markers and then ran at the markers. Like,
okay.
that's the only way I could manage. But sounds like we're in pretty much agreement on. I do think that the backlash to this game is a little overblown.
Oh,
Like,
I think it's so overblown. I think everyone acting like this is the biggest travesty in gaming and it's disgusting, and anyone who buys it is supporting a problem. Like, it's a really fun and enjoyable game. It just doesn't run at 60 FPS. Like,
it
chill
doesn't
out.
run at 30 FPS. But you and me just played Evil West, and I would argue to say Evil West's bugs impacted my experience more than
Mhm.
Pokemon's
Yeah, absolutely.
technical issues. And
Absolutely.
Evil West was a game we had a lot of fun with, but it did, like, there were times when we had to quit the game, or like there's
Or
nothing here
the game would just
stop
break.
working. Yes. There are games out there that have much worse bugs and worse technical issues, but they don't sell 10 million copies, so nobody talks about them.
There was not a single bug in this game that that, for me anyways, broke the game or wasn't just funny. Like,
Mhm.
I had someone T-pose one time in the middle of a fight, and he just scrolled along the background. That was funny. I was walking randomly down the middle of a field, and I got into a battle, and there was no Pokemon, and the Pokemon was like 5 miles
Forever
back that
away.
way. And I'm like, all right. Sometimes you would start a battle and you'd spawn like out of bounds, and I was like,
Your
all right.
trainer would be somewhere else. It's
My
like, okay.
the one time we went to that tower, my trainer spawned up on a ledge, and I was like, "All right, I guess
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening here." Like, none of them broke the game or made it so that you couldn't play the game. They were just kind of dumb, like stupid things that obviously like a well polished game shouldn't have, but that don't impact the overall experience. Like, I saw someone before you unlock Miraidon and Koraidon's abilities. By the way, the climbing ability is the best one in the game.
Yeah.
Easily the best one.
Easily.
Um, but I saw before they had just started the game, before they had even unlocked that, they wanted to get up a hill, and they're like, "Oh, I can't get up that." But they noticed that if you jump backwards, the hind legs land higher.
Yeah.
And so he jumped backwards up the cliff, and I was like, "All right." I was like,
But
that's funny
that's
to
not a
me."
glitch that ruins my experience.
No.
That's a Skyrim level, like, this is amusing, this is fun, I'm gonna exploit.
Yes.
Like, those are the things in games that I will, like,
Enjoy.
okay, I'm fine with that being there. Like, that
Yeah.
doesn't impact. So I did think the backlash I saw was a bit much. I do think that this is the best Pokemon game in years, despite the technical issues. And that's really where I land on it. I like Scarlet. It's not making my top 10 list or anything, but I really enjoyed my time with it.
See, this is making my top 10 list, but I think that comes from a place of being just a huge Pokemon fan.
Mhm.
Um, but I totally understand why probably won't make most people's top 10. But I don't. I would recommend the game to anybody that wants just a fun Pokemon game.
Yep. I fall similarly. So I think we'll end it there. Thank you, all our patrons, again for supporting us. Your patronage is what makes this show and all of our other shows possible. It makes us look so good and sound so great. So thank you all. And we will see you next month with another Save the Game Boy. Goodbye.